Thank you, Pearl. And thank you to you all for being here. And I just wanted to say how exciting it is that you combine the workshop with the evening of readings. That's a format that I'd like to take back to Toronto and suggest to people, because I don't know too many programs that work this way. It sounds like a really great reward. And thank you to Colin as well, and Pearl for directing this new season, and good luck to you here at this venue. I think it's great to be in an art space and with intermedia work as well. I'm going to start just by reading two poems or two selections from Multitudes. The work in Multitudes kind of looks at the era of social media, and I've been very interested in forms of direct and indirect address, relationality in the age of social media. So the first piece I'll read is a poem that is called Threshold. I was trying to describe that space that we're sort of posed at much of our time now, connected to a machine as the conduit that brings us in relation to other people. There's an epigraph from Whitman, "Sing the body electric." Push words into body. Do those words form a column or spiral? Do those words coalesce as body into the body they conjure? Push words into mouth. Do those words form a tongue or jetty? Is a probe form that touches the tongue it entangles? Push words onto mound of nipple, onto mounded nipple jewels. Do words circulate as honey, as tentacles that leaven and stiffen? Are words the door slab we cross, or the instepping over? Do words think what they want, or rush in, impartial? Fasten words into armpits, knee backs, elbow fronts. Do these words moving into view bulk or break like touch, or are they just its cushions? Do I cock my head sideways, peer along tubal promontories, and at this occult angle drench my throat in letters? Do I tongue roll speech? Do I usher words into corridors we recognize, or do new phrases fissure the organism? Pack syllables into glands, deliver glandular phonemes glad to open, proposition palms moistening in response. Wave words toward portals as if bright green pennants. Signal presence at the threshold. Do words gush good manners? Do words think about waiting? Can words hold back or off or away until the body goes rigid and dirigible? A warm headwind pushes against the body the way words do. Words form a column or spiral of headwind, and it is honeyed, it is tentacled, it is probing. Words suckle the column and nipple the mound, delve inside ducts and shovel out insides. Let's push words into coming, gnash words into coming, into body, shove grammar onto parts, load coming into each. Is it the threshold of coming or the deep thrash of asking? I wonder, do words have any clue? I wonder if words hold me or if you do. Maybe there's zero here, save our so green thresholds. So that's a poem about sexting, if you didn't cotton on to that. A whole new grammar. And I'm going to read three little segments from a poem series called Weapon. And I guess in some way there's some kind of reference in these three pieces to 9/11, as well as that strange time-lapse space where we sort of see something happen and we don't know that it's happening to us. Subject. For a moment, I turned to the window. I turned and, for a moment when I turned, I gathered information. The window was gone. There was a place of light. In a place of light was a shade drawn. Subject. Fly. Subject. For a moment, you turned to the winnings. You turned and the dough was gone. For a moment, when you turned, you gathered information. There was a coin of light in place of flight. Shades drawn. I'm a partner. Objects. For several moments, we turned from the windows. There were shades drawn. We turned, and for several moments when we turned, we gathered in morphation. The doors were gone. There were places of lights in places of lights. Status. We were all seeking more information on morphology. We wanted faces with names. We wanted names with faces. Oh, to be both recognizable and a bit of an identity dervish. It is a pleasure to be informed, to be in good form facing each other, to recognize patterns of shade and light, to gravitate toward the details, the little dimples so unique, the crow's feet, all your wonky teeth, your zany hairline, how you look at your best. And when you splinter on some retail camera clutching contraband, we have to repost. Well, Multitudes was largely written in 2010, 11, 12. It came out in 2013. And I was writing on that project at the same time as some rather calamitous events happened in my family, and the focus of my world changed. It moved more towards recognizing mortality and helping to be part of the care team of my mother after she had a stroke. I ended up, over the last few years, writing what has turned out to be what we're calling a memoir. Really, I was trying to grapple with a lot of the concerns I've had through all of my work around mothering, daughtering, and appearing as a female subject in the present, in the imagination, conceptually, physically. And in this case, the project became one that also involved some travel, and it involved my transition to making a lot of photographs. So the book, part of the subtitle is inclusive of selfies. There's some writing about the idea of the selfie, and there are some sections in the book that have photographic images that come from a very large archive of work that I've done over the last few years in relation to writing. So that's part of the book. And the book also contains prose and poetry. So I'm just going to try to read some sections. It's an eclectic book, and I want to give you a sense of some of the ways those layers operate, if I can. It is July 2012. I turned 50. My daughter has recently turned 15. Earlier the same year, at the age of 80, my mother has suffered an ischemic stroke that has deprived her of the ability to create. This fly is the fly of this poetry. I think I'm going to have to embrace this fly tonight. Maybe I should be translating. My mother suffered an ischemic stroke that has deprived her of the ability to create or receive unjumbled language. She speaks a new language for which there will be no reliable translation. I have begun to interpret her facial gestures and the varied effective sounds she makes to alert me as to her opinion or disposition. Oddly, the words she has retained from the difficult garble of paraphasia are unmistakable expressions of her love for and pleasure at seeing my siblings, my children, and me. My mother loves me. For the first time, this is not a happenstance camouflaged by her irony, sarcasm, aloofness, and fatigue. I hold her hand and stroke her skin. I comb her hair. I assist with small tasks around meals and page through favorite artists' monographs with her as she oos appreciatively with recognition and appraisal at examples of the visual art she has deeply loved her whole adult life, but with which she especially began to identify after becoming a practicing artist as her 4 kids grew to teenagehood and began one by one to move on in their lives. I've never before had such physical access to my mother. To be with her in this debacle is to have her and be had by her, an original phase of my life as a woman, daughter, and girl. I glimpse a palpable umbilical rope that moves from the middle of my body through the middle of hers, and which extends toward the other women of her lineage, from whom I am descended, but with whom I felt little attachment or identity. Throughout the years I raised my children, nursing them, holding them, nurturing them physically, I sensed a chaotic lack, a split, a stark restlessness with my mother and all of the other women in my lines. I couldn't touch them, and aside from by my Greek nana, I had not really felt touched. Decades of sex did not seem to repair that lack. Mum's break with speech forced the conundrum to the fore. If we couldn't use language to stay at our designated endboards of the non-touching field, if we now had to bring close our eyes and hands and skin to communicate and understand each other in the most basic sense, what other openness might I begin to feel in finding connection to my transgenerational mother lines? It is humorous to me that whenever I type this word on my keyboard, the machine slips in another S. Motherliness is the materiality woven by these lines about my mother, her mother, and the other women forebears I've been attracted to know. Like the intense entwining of bodies I experienced while mothering my own children into language, an illness that caused the erasure of language and all of language's deployment of distance between bodies made the lush beauty and tenderness of my mother's body appear to me finally, and mine to appear, inerasably it feels now, to her. So what I ended up doing was going for a 2-month research trip to England and Greece, and I went to the villages that both my grandmothers had come from, which isn't something I'd ever wanted to do, but there was something about having lost my father the year before and then recognizing that my mother really was in the end stage of her life that impelled me to make this journey. So some of this writing I'll read from you is from one of the sections of the book called She Comes From Everywhere, and a lot of it is addressed to my daughter. September 28th, 2012. I'll just check the time. So you see yourself in several mirrors. So you see yourself. You see your body and your face. You face your body and see your face. You see yourself in mirrors, in washrooms, in airports. You have a look that seems squirrely. You look at yourself and appreciate how bad the lighting is. You look at your eyes, at your cheeks. You see a wide silver realm of mirror all around your little head. Do you exist? How old are you? How many years have you been here? Is this the first time you have arrived? Is it reasonable to think that Virginia Woolf examined herself every fortnight or so in a mirror 15. Everyone is 15 at some point unless they go down like a tragic consumptive. I was 15 once. I looked in the mirror and thought I was small and that I was required to smile whenever anyone looked at me or when I looked upon myself. For quite a while I have not seen myself in a mirror. Am I alive? Do I exist? Am I a woman? Everyone over there is in the same green t-shirt. They are a club or a team. They recognize each other and then it is clear who they are. What am I wearing? Who cares? I have a lot of people who love me on another continent. That will have to suffice for now, if only I can hold such a vast silver realm around my little grayed-out head. Here in England, it is almost noon. In my body, it is 6 a.m. It is 6 a.m. Am I 15? Would I wake up for school soon? If so, did Nanny like to go to school and in her room was there a mirror? Did she take her photo to let her girlfriends know what outfit she was wearing that day? Did she post herself on the public internet? Why can't I get online here at Heathrow fucking Airport 2012? Get real. Am I real? Clea, are you stirring yet? And will you count the morning in your mind's eye to yourself? Here is the first day my mother was gone from me for her writing trip. I am alone. I have my girlfriends, my aunts, my other relatives. I have my teachers and my Facebook page. I have 600 friends. I have a huge shimmering head in the middle of a small blue frame. I'm up to the challenge. I'm 15 and I exist. Are you awake as yet and have you Googled to see if she exists? She had a few thoughts of your face, your cheeks and top lip. She begins to recognize that maybe you have forgotten her for a moment, yet you love that she exists. Is love a forgetting? One of the things that goes on in this book is there are photo notes that refer to photo albums that are actually posted on my Facebook page. That you have access to the text for the most part, and then you can go online and become my friend and see the photos, or you can sort of interpolate these images from the text that describes them. So I'm just going to read you a little bit from going to the small Greek fishing village on the eastern coast of the Peloponnese where my grandmother was from. And my sense of grappling a little bit with the history of the place and that sense of trying to put history together with this place that was almost mythical because my grandmother had really spent her entire adult life wanting to go back there. She really mourned having had to leave. Am I a mountain? It's a village that is located tucked down below, right on the sea, on the Meritu Sea. These huge mountains behind. They're very, very difficult to pass through. Am I a mountain? Am I 15? Does language come round my brain into my being and request a pass at the death drop? Yo, can I slide through? Tonight I'm pretty tired and need some whiskey. Can you heat it for me, Death? Will you warm my bedclothes? If you are alone in a country where you are the speech mangler, some kind of fog or mist burgeons on the fourth morning, makes you feel rocky, like a hill covered in scrappy pine bushes. What happened to those trunks that they hug the ground? They don't want to lean too far out over the gorge. To exist, stay tucked in the upper chest, an uncoughed cough. A low-flying plane today brings echoic images of air attacks during the war and how villagers hid in the mountains and stayed as grounded as possible as the dark asterisks dove and roared. I find my imagination is limited by cinema. I really hate cinema some days. You know that when I say villagers, I mean men, women, and children, shoving their roots into a ground tucked under the visible surface, wishing to be inside the earth, as far from sky as possible. This is as human as the ones doing the bombing. For what? What? To own that land? To run that country? To be the villagers? Land is the thing wanted. Land is the thing we come round the mountain for, to settle, to proliferate, to live a life. But nobody wants to live alone in a village. A village is a voluptuous multitude. You awake over the oceany push and you Google to see if she exists. You x and x together for some smatterings of time splice. Clear, it's funny when Maureen posts on a picture of you that I look really great and happy. It's as if for a moment you are my happy and great self, and well, I am over the hill, seriously. But Maureen didn't mean it that way. It's the way I take it because of the culture that's raised me, praised me only for being 15 and young and happy and not a self-recognizing woman of 50. I'm 50. Hey, Walt, you'd mean something else by this, eh? I hear from Theophroso via Tula that Efrosini, my great-grandmother, had not 14 but 16 children, and that 9 of them survived. There's no mention of a faith culture that requires women to be a willing vessel or that expects men to take sex whenever they wish it. This is just 3 generations back. My great-grandmother was pregnant and 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 pregnant 14 times, for there were 2 pairs of twins. And of these offspring, she lost 7, only slightly better than a 50% success rate. Think of it. I can barely think of it. Somehow the question of a woman's pleasure in self-recognition, both sexual and intellectual, evaporates in the barrage of sheer labor that must have strobed her corporeal reality for those many years. I can't even imagine if she liked sex or Spiru's returns from the sea. It seems indulgent beyond decency to ask this of history. Given that Nana was the eldest girl and sent away to marry, I can imagine now this displaced her from becoming a lifelong surrogate mother to her many siblings, released her to become devoted to her own offspring. It's hard to imagine Efrosini would have schemed to send Dimitra away given her workload. But away she went at the age of 15, and by 50 her 2 surviving children were 26 and 21. Here I am at 50 and my children so far away from me for just this envelope of exploration are 19, 15, and 15. Ostensibly I am more bound to maternality at the same life stage than she was. But I know my access to sexual and intellectual pleasures at 50 and experiencing and examining their relationship to self-recognition is the fuller bounty, the bigger part of this legacy. It's hard to be by the sea and write about anything other than the sea. It's hard to be anything other than by the sea. It's hard to write, it's anything other, it's sea. It's hard to be by anything and write. Other than by the sea, it's hard to write. The other woman left. She was far over on the other side of the beach. Who was she? You definitely exist. You shimmer. You don't need a mirror, sky, mirror to sky and sea, and you exist. Did you wake and Google her? Did you recall her there in another time zone? Do you love, and why not love more? Anne Marie. Are you 50 or 15 or 5 or a blend of interrandom markers mapping your procession to this terrace? You come to the narrative space laid out by women whose bodies are bones. Smatter some, take a bone, grind it, groan, grain, break it to seed, and swallow. There was a woman below me up early watering her garden of bougainvillea and oranges, mother or daughter. Pretty nice life, but if you come in the soft times, don't imagine for a minute the opposite cannot seize hold. It is not chronological. Our good fortune is a blip and permeates. And I'll just finish. There are various kinds of poems through the book. I'm just going to read one that's a little bit of a statement of, actually it's a little piece that derives from the definition of paraphernalia, which was one of the ways the book got titled. This morning, via serendipitous pieces and bits of a wandering gazefulness, sorting under more of the skirts of the word paraphernalia, arrived into use in the mid-17th century, denoting property owned by a married woman apart from her dowry, for example, her own things, derived from medieval Latin based on Greek parapherna, property apart from a dowry, from para, distinct from flies, and ferna from ferne, dowry of flies. Oxford suggests bacchanalia, azalea, genitalia, Westphalia, echolalia as partner rhymes for that which is beyond the dowry, that which remains her own. Part of this book is about marriage breaking up and coming into some reckoning with becoming single. She considers things to do with her own things, which can be raffled off, riffled through, rifled inside of, gathered into ruffles, taken into a kerfuffle, spilt from bubbles, overfelt like a fur reef or a felt rafter falling at a rakish hypotenuse. What's the use then? What you use to drawer now upended on a wooden floor. She considers the stuff of perforated kneeling, bone to the sternum, which and what is her stuff, her stuffing, such that it remains enough around her thigh skirts, beyond what is called her dowry. Her paraphernalia, her paraphernalia, her paraphernalia, her paraphernalia, her paraphernalia, her paraphernalia, hers. I'll stop there.